Let's talk about early 2026. The world was, and this is no exaggeration, teetering on the edge of a nuclear catastrophe. A super high-stakes standoff between the United States and Iran was about to boil over, and it all came down to one single, terrifying deadline. So let's dive into how we ended up on the brink.
Okay, so let's set the scene. The date is April 7th, 2026. This is the day everything came to a head. Tensions, they were through the roof, and a deadline was ticking down, one that had the power to change the Middle East forever.
And it all kicked off with this, a post on social media from the American president. And look, there was nothing subtle about it. The ultimatum was crystal clear. If Iran didn't reopen the Strait of Hormuz, which is this critical channel for the world's oil supply, the consequences would be civilization ending. And yeah, a lot of people took that as a direct threat to use nuclear weapons.
Right, so a threat like that, it doesn't just pop up out of the blue. To really get what was on the line that day, on April 7th, we need to back up a little and look at the brutal 50-day conflict that got us here in the first place. So, for 50 days, this war had been raging. But what made this conflict so incredibly terrifying, what set it apart, was the direct targeting of nuclear sites. We're talking about bombs being dropped near Iran's Bushehr power plant, its only working nuclear facility, not once, but 4 separate times. This wasn't just a conventional war anymore. This was playing with nuclear fire.
And if one of those bombs had made a direct hit, well, it would have been apocalyptic for the whole region. I mean, listen to the Prime Minister of Qatar here. He said the Gulf would be entirely contaminated. No water, no fish, nothing. Think about that. We're talking a Chernobyl-level disaster, poisoning the water for generations.
And while all this nuclear brinkmanship was happening, the human cost was just staggering. In only the first 50 days of fighting, more than 4,000 people had been killed. That includes Iranians, Lebanese, Israelis, and Americans.
But it's easy to get lost in the numbers. And the source material for this explainer puts it in a way that really hits home. It's not just a statistic, not just 4,000 deaths. It's over 7,000 families destroyed. And that's on top of the millions who were forced from their homes. The personal tragedy behind these numbers is just immense.
So as that human toll is climbing, the military stakes are getting higher too, and things are about to get very personal. See, there is this narrative of American air dominance, but on April 3rd, an event happened that not only challenged that idea, but also triggered this incredibly risky special ops mission deep inside Iran.
So here's the play-by-play. An American F-15E gets shot down. Boom. Just like that, you've got 2 crew members on the ground in Iran. It's a frantic race to find them. One pilot gets rescued pretty fast, but the other, an Air Force colonel, he's just gone. For a whole day, more than 24 hours, he's hiding out injured in the mountains at 7,000 feet. Everyone's holding their breath, and then a faint radio message comes through. It's just 3 words. God is good. Now at first you can imagine the paranoia. US officials are thinking, is this a trap? Are the Iranians trying to lure us in? But after some frantic analysis, they confirm it. The voice is real, the transmission is legit, he's alive. And just like that, the rescue mission is a go. And we're not talking a small in-and-out job. This was a massive operation, a real high-stakes chess game. First, the CIA starts spreading fake stories that both crew members were already safe, just to throw the Iranians off the scent. At the same time, they're pinpointing the colonel's exact location. Then, they send in the big guns, Delta Force and SEAL Team 6, deploying into Iran under the cover of massive airstrikes to keep the Iranian army pinned down. Now, publicly, the story was simple. The president declared the mission a total success, proof of America's full control of the skies. But behind the scenes, it was a much messier picture. I mean, the fact that an advanced F-15E was shot down in the first place was a huge blow. And the rescue itself, it came at a cost. A US A-10 Warthog crashed during the mission, and several helicopters were so badly damaged they had to be destroyed right there on Iranian soil.
All right, so all of that brings us right back to April 7th. The president's deadline is ticking down, the world is bracing for the worst, and what happens next is just this week of absolute diplomatic whiplash. It was impossible to know what was happening from one hour to the next.
I mean, look at this timeline. It is a complete roller coaster. With just 90 minutes to go before the deadline, a surprise 2-week ceasefire is announced. Whew, right? Wrong. The very next day, Israel launches over 100 strikes on Lebanon saying, hey, we're not part of that deal. Then peace talks start in Pakistan, only to completely fall apart in less than a day. Then Iran opens the Strait of Hormuz.
Oh wait, never mind. The next day they close it again. It was just total chaos. So you have to ask, why? Why did the talks crash and burn so fast? Well, it all boiled down to this one huge gap that neither side could cross. The US was demanding that Iran stop all of its nuclear activity for 20 years. Iran's offer? They'd do it, but only for 5. And that was it. That was the sticking point. Neither side would budge an inch, and just like that, any real hope for peace, gone.
And the collapse of those talks created this situation that honestly nobody had ever really seen before. A double blockade. You had Iran continuing to block the Strait of Hormuz to all international shipping, and in response, the U.S. Navy threw up its own blockade around Iran's ports, trying to cut off all their trade, even with big players like China.
And you have to remember, this was never just about the US and Iran. This crisis was like a magnet, pulling in other major world powers. And every single one of them had their own interests and their own agendas, making an already explosive situation even more complicated.
And you can really see just how tangled that web got. You've got China sending a clear warning to the US, stay away from our ships and our relationship with Iran. Pakistan, of all countries, gets pushed into this bizarre role as the main go-between. Meanwhile, Israel is still running its own military operations, which isn't helping regional tensions at all. And then you have countries like India, who just get caught in the middle of the whole mess.
And this really shows you that this wasn't just some abstract political game. This had very real, very immediate consequences. Take one day, just one day. 8 Indian-flagged ships tried to get through the strait. 2 of them, including a supertanker carrying 2 million barrels of oil, were intercepted and actually fired on by Iranian gunboats. This stuff was directly impacting global security and the economy right then and there.
Okay, so after all that, the threats, the daring rescue, the roller coaster diplomacy, where did that leave everyone? Well, that 2-week ceasefire was about to expire, and the situation it left behind was, let's just say, incredibly unstable. And here's the bottom line. That fragile 2-week ceasefire, the one that literally pulled the world back from the edge on April 7th, it officially ended on April 22nd. And after all that back and forth, there was no permanent deal. Nothing. The clock had simply run out.
Which leaves us with this one kind of chilling question. The ceasefire is over. The military forces on both sides are on high alert. You've got global powers pulling in all different directions, and the core problems haven't been solved at all. So, what happens now? Was this whole thing just a temporary pause before an even bigger, wider war? Or can some kind of fragile peace actually